Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us for this developing and breaking news today. I'm Laura Papetti, and we are going to begin with this. What started as a call for a grass fire on Canfield Mountain near Coeur d'Alene turned deadly as firefighters were met with gunfire on the mountain yesterday. The Kootenai County Sheriff calling what happened to the firefighters a total ambush, adding they had no chance when they arrived on scene to the fire. So we are about to learn some new information from Kootenai County officials coming up in about 15 minutes. There is a scheduled news conference. In fact, you're looking at a live look right now of where that news conference is scheduled to take place at 2 o'clock. We are expecting to hear from Sheriff Bob Norris, who is going to update us and the community on what is happening with the investigation as we continue to look for answers to this developing and continuously changing story. But what we do know is that 2 firefighters were killed in that ambush yesterday, along with a third firefighter taken into surgery and in the hospital. We also know at this point that the shooter was found yesterday dead at the scene, and we are learning more details about who that was. Our Cody Proctor is standing by for this news conference again at the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. We'll be checking in with her shortly as she is getting set up. You just saw that live look, and we'll find out more about what is expected to come out of that press conference shortly. We do have reporters working different parts of this story as there is so much to talk about, and we did talk with Andres Gutierrez from CBS today, who had learned more information about the shooter and the direction of this investigation.
At this point, 2 law enforcement officials tell CBS News that the shooter is 20-year-old Wes Rowley, and they have been able to identify him, and now essentially they work on piecing together a timeline backwards from the moment that they were able to hoist his body being a key piece of evidence. Yes, there is the autopsy that will determine whether he took his own life or whether he died in the exchange fire, in the gunfire, in the exchange with law enforcement. But there's also now the electronics that were on him. We know that it was a cell phone that was on him that eventually led law enforcement to the position where they were able to hoist that body. They will lean heavily on the federal law enforcement partners to extract information from that electronic and other electronics that he had. There's also likely that a search warrant is being executed as we speak at the shooter's home to see if there's anything that may lead us to learn why he ended up carrying this out Sunday afternoon. In addition to that, there will also be leading on the ATF to see if there is any serial number on that weapon that was found right next to him. They'll run it against several databases and see whether that weapon was obtained legally or not legally. And if it was obtained legally, was there a straw buyer in this instance? So those are all questions that have yet to be answered, and the investigation very early, but local law enforcement heavily will lean on those federal law enforcement partners.
All right. We appreciate that. Some new information coming out today on the shooter himself and what law enforcement is doing now. Any word that you can give us, any information about the 2 firefighters who were killed and the other firefighter that's in the hospital? Anything new there?
Well, we know that the firefighter who was wounded underwent surgery yesterday. He's in stable condition. The 2 firefighters who passed away, we saw that very moving procession from when they were taken here from the hospital to the medical examiner's office out in Spokane. And so there's a lot of heartbreak right now in this community. The members who are his brothers right now being supported by peer support groups. So they're bringing in those resources. And also, in my experience covering these, there are also a number of agencies out there that help out agencies when there is a line of duty death. And so you can know that there are probably organizations reaching out to this particular one, trying to figure out how to make those funeral arrangements and how costs will be covered. We know that yesterday during that news conference, law enforcement pointed out that the community should not be so quick to give out to organizations claiming to be representing the family. They want for there to be an official word from them, and that may happen later this afternoon. We are hearing that there will be another news conference here at 2 o'clock local time, and we'll be there for that news conference.
All right. Hearing again from Andres Gutierrez with CBS earlier about the ongoing investigation, and we are expecting in 10 minutes from now to learn more as well with the latest update from law enforcement. We're going to likely hear from the sheriff, Bob Norris, in Kootenai County. All right. Idaho's U.S. Senators Mike Crapo and Jim Risch delivered remarks and led a moment of silence on the Senate floor during the Senate's vote on the reconciliation bill to remember the victims of yesterday's ambush attack.
However, while business continues here, life for the North Idaho community of Coeur d'Alene remains at a very painful standstill as we mourn the horrific loss of 2 firefighters. Yesterday afternoon, firefighters from Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai County were responding to a fire on Canfield Mountain. Upon arrival, they were ambushed by gunfire. 2 brave firefighters were murdered. Another has already undergone surgery for gunshot wounds. As we continue our work today, I ask my colleagues to join me in sending your prayers for that firefighter's full recovery, for the deceased victims, for their families, and for the entire North Idaho community grieving this heinous act. Senator Risch.
Thank you.
All right, and Washington Senators Maria Cantwell and Patty Murray also remembering the firefighters and commending Washington first responders for their assistance to the community. So many law enforcement agencies, of course, responding locally. There were national agencies as well, and hundreds of people taking part in that. Also, we saw last night a procession of law enforcement and firefighters escorting the 2 firefighters who died from Coeur d'Alene to the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office. People from the community and other firefighters lined the overpasses to show respect for their fallen brothers. So a moving scene there, and our team coverage continues again. Now that procession began at Kootenai Health, where the firefighters were first taken after the shooting. KREM 2's Caitlin Galloway was there last night and talked to people who showed up to support the firefighters.
It's a quiet night here at Kootenai Health. No large crowds, no large memorials, nothing like that. This is where those firefighters were taken after this tragic situation unfolded on Sunday afternoon. Although there's no memorial or large presence here, there were a lot of people that came out to the overpass. Exit 11 on I-90 specifically is where I talked with some members of the community who came out in support of some fire vehicles lined up on that overpass ready to join the procession that started here at Kootenai Health and moved on to Spokane. The members of that community showed up. They were waving American flags. They came to shake hands with the first responders to thank them for all that they do and to say that they're sorry for their loss. I spoke with a woman there who said this does not happen in her community. Really shattered their sense of community and safety here in Coeur d'Alene.
Well, I'm a Coeur d'Alene, Idaho native, so these are our neighbors and our sons and our brothers and our friends. And they put their lives on the line every day for us. And for them to come and try to put out a fire and get shot in Idaho, that doesn't happen up here.
I also talked with a hospital employee who didn't want to talk on camera, but did tell me that there was an honor walk for these firefighters in the ER. And it wasn't just the ER, it was all departments of the hospital that showed their support for these fire personnel. At Kootenai Health, Caitlin Galloway, KREM 2 News.
All right, so we are hearing, of course, from Caitlin last night on some of the emotional moments surrounding this story as, the community is reeling from 2 firefighters being murdered who were responding to a fire to fight the fire, potentially save lives, 2 gunned down and killed. That procession then taking them to the Spokane coroner's office, and then also the 3rd firefighter taken to surgery. And at last report, as you heard earlier in this newscast, at last report was in stable condition following surgery from injuries related. We just were looking at a live picture just a moment ago of where a press conference is scheduled to take place in 5 minutes. We are expecting to hear from Sheriff Bob Norris and potentially other law enforcement leaders to find out so many answers still left to find out. So many questions to ask as this case continues to unfold, and there are a lot of elements to it. One of the things we are hearing, of course, from people today is how do we help? And how do you give to the families impacted by this, firefighter families and the community, firefighting community in general? We are hoping to hear more about that, as they have asked for people not to donate right away until they have established sort of an official fund, so that they can make sure that that money is going exactly where it is needed, and that nobody takes advantage of a situation or any scams or become problematic. So we are hoping to find out how the community, how all of you out there, all of us, can be helpful. As we wait for that news conference, a couple of things to note that came out today. We knew, obviously, about the shootings last night. We knew that the shooter himself was found dead on the mountain when the officials were able to move in. What we don't know is how he died, whether it was self-inflicted or from law enforcement. We don't know if we'll hear anything about that. We learned more information that they were able to track his location, potentially using his cell phone. So we learned a little bit about that today, and that cell phone, now a critical piece of evidence. Also that earlier today, we heard that there were likely search warrants being issued for his home or homes. So we are learning more about that, and we suspect that may be subject of some of the information today of this press conference that we're looking at live right now. This is in Kootenai County. Again, following yesterday's events and during yesterday's events, we did hear from Sheriff Bob Norris keeping people updated on what was happening. It was very scary for people in that area because, of course, dozens, if not hundreds of people, of course, rushing to that scene, law enforcement agencies from all over responding when they heard, of course, that someone was shooting. And that there was an active shooter situation, shooting at firefighters. So it was a very scary time for people who live in that area near Canfield. As you can see, just all dozens of cars lining the road and sirens going. And we were hearing from people how really terrifying that was. There was a sort of a lockdown order in place at one time, shelter in place rather, because at one point they didn't know what was happening, if other people were in danger. So people in the community really reeling from this and are hoping to learn more answers. What we do know is that today is one press conference likely of many to come, because this will be an ongoing investigation. As you know, it happened yesterday, but there's so much to go through and so many agencies involved that will have a role in this, in finding out some of the details, some of the questions, some of the why behind it. They have not released, or we don't know if they know anything about a motive or why the person chose to do this. And so, again, we are hoping this afternoon to find out some information. We do see, I don't know if that's the sheriff or not there. They are going up there and getting a sound check right now, because obviously, as you might imagine, a lot of people in that room, a lot of members of the media from not only local media, national as well, as this has become a point of conversation across the country, that firefighters who normally do not encounter this type of violence when they go to a scene, they are not trained for ambushing in that. So we're going to take a moment now and pause, and we're going to listen in as they begin that press conference today, and we get more information.
And to let you know that we had a jumper off a Veterans Bridge and we'll give you just a little bit of information on that. So the suspect that has been identified by our Kootenai County Coroner's Office, Coroner Duke Johnson there, has been identified as Wes Val Rowley, date of birth of May 1st, 2005. As of right now, and this is all very, very preliminary, we've had a lot of resources at the crime scene. We've been working through the night, so many of these facts are subject to change. We believe that Rowley has prior residence in California, Arizona, and Idaho. We believe he was born in California. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and Coeur d'Alene Police Department, we've had 5 interactions with Rowley. And of those 5 interactions, we've had 3. Coeur d'Alene Police had 2. They're very, very minor in nature. They had to do with more trespassing. He was trespassing at a location. He was asked to leave, and he cooperated. We had some welfare checks on Rowley, and very, very minor. We don't show any criminal history for Rowley. We do have some social media presence for for Rowley. Find it disgusting to call him a Mr., but we don't have any much to go on. Here's some of his social media postings that were recently removed from social media. I believe this one was Instagram, and we have some copies of this that Lieutenant Mark Ellis will distribute. Where we're at with the crime scene. The crime scene is active. We still have the suspect's vehicle that is up down an embankment of the mountain. Deputies who responded on scene to protect life and engage the suspect thought it would be in their best interest to get rid of what they thought was Rowley's vehicle. So they had the frame of mind to push it over the side so he couldn't come around and get in that vehicle and flee. So we have not been able to find any manifesto. We have not been able to inventory the vehicle, although people that have seen the vehicle do believe it appeared as if he was living in the vehicle. There was a lot of debris that's in the vehicle, so that's all we have on that. Like I said again, we have not verified or found any manifesto. We have not done an inventory of that vehicle. I'd like to give you an update on the fire that we believe Rowley started. Rowley was found to be in possession of a flint starter, and we believe that was his method for starting the fire. That eventually led to firefighters responding. So as of right now, the fire is at 26 acres. It has not grown. It is a slow progress because it's very difficult terrain to get assets, ground assets up there. Idaho Department of Lands is putting a lot of water on it from aerial supports, so that's going rather well. They believe they'll have a fire line around it by dark tonight. There are no structures that are threatened. Again, I'd like to say that last night about 11 p.m., we did receive information that an individual jumped from Veterans Bridge. That is not related to this situation whatsoever. We don't find any nexus to the murdering of the 2 firefighters and injuring of one. Now, we have some of our incident commander who was here last night. That was the incident command of the scene. We have some of our SWAT operators that were here last night. And we had about 27 containment points on this mountain. And just to give you an idea, when you're setting up a containment in an urban setting, you might have 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks that you're setting up a containment on. But when you are setting up on a mountain, that just provides a lot more difficult dynamics than if it were a city block. So we, to the 27 containment points, we had 2, 3, 4 officers per containment point. And then we have a primary containment point where we believe the suspect is. And then we have a secondary containment point. And we absolutely utilized every resource that responded to the command post. And I do have the incident commander from last night if there's any questions. Kevin and Jeremy Heil, Kevin Smart, can you come up here just to be here just in case somebody has any questions? And
coming up, can I ask one question? You mentioned that there was no prior record. Are you talking specifically in Idaho, or is this also in California and Arizona?
At this time, we can't locate a criminal record for this individual. We've had interactions with him, but we don't find a criminal record with him. Also, we don't find that there's any nexus to any Islamic Jihad, which is also being disseminated on social media. We don't find that there's a nexus to that either.
Sheriff, are you taking questions?
Yes, we're going to take questions.
Alex with the spokesman review. So are we clear, did the suspect die by suicide or was he shot by police? Do you know that yet?
It appears that he shot himself. Yes.
Do you know if he was stockpiling weapons up there or why he was on the road specifically? One gun, multiple guns?
We have information that he at one time wanted to be a firefighter. So we don't know if there's a nexus to that desire and what happened yesterday, but there is information that we've received that he at one time wanted to be a firefighter. So we're still processing the scene. It's going to take a few days to do that, especially with the current fire that's there. So, John?
Sheriff, have they had any communication with the fire district about a potential job there?
We have checked some of the fire entities here, and we have not located where he had either put in an application or put in some sort of a interest form. We have not found that yet. So that, we have not found that.
One more question here. There appears to be a video on Instagram. Was this posted right before the ambush?
Well, it was discovered right before, but I don't know how long it had been there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any indication of the motive?
Yeah, no, we don't have any indication of any motive at this time. And we, certainly we will continue to investigate that, but obviously we go on intent, and so but we will certainly find out, or if there's any evidence to believe that there was a motive, we will do that. And I think an inventory of the vehicle would be a good place to start.
Do you think his desire to potentially become a firefighter is part of this?
We just don't know. Yeah, we just don't know. The gentleman.
These firearms, has that been determined yet? If
what?
These were his firearms that were used, or were they someone else's?
Has not been determined yet. The lady in the green.
Sheriff Cody Proctor with Frontier News. You mentioned that he had had interactions before with law enforcement, but had he had interactions before with firefighters?
We did not check to see if he had any interaction with firefighters. We do know that he did contact the firefighters when they came on scene, and there was a discussion. So we're still in the process of investigating that part of it. So, gentleman in the blue in the back.
Sheriff, talk to me about why you're sharing these instrumentals
talk to us, what does it look like when you're looking at this and what it symbolizes to the department?
Well, we're trying to collect any and all information, and those social media posts are what we call open source information. So this is all in an effort to find out intent, to find out if there was any other, if there was a motive or whatever the case may be. But
another question. We had some people that live in the area of the evacuation zone last night, or this shelter in place. They say they didn't get a phone call, they didn't get a text. How does your system work? Was there a text that went out, or how did you let people know?
Yes, absolutely. Part of our Kootenai alerts system, we sent out a text, I believe, a 5-mile radius, and I encourage people who live or frequent the area to sign up for Kootenai alerts. So
that's an opt-in service?
Well, yes. Yep. The gentleman in the blue.
Sure. The welfare checks that you guys initiated, were they given by a relative? Did a parent call you to check on him, or are they concerned about his mental health?
No, it was generally a reporting party who called and saw a vehicle that was either parked near their property or on their property. One was a restaurant where he appeared to be residing at. He was asked to leave, and he complied. So none of them that we have at this time were called in from a relative. They were called in from a property owner or passerby. The gentleman there in the...
Sheriff, can you describe the weapon that you found next to...
It appears right now we have a shotgun that was used, but we're still processing the scene.
So obviously a shotgun is not a sniper weapon.
Correct.
Do you know what kind of weapon that was?
Well, we're still processing the scene, but let me kind of set the scene for everybody. When you're in a rural area and you're heavily treed, heavily brushed, and when you're taking fire, then it just adds a whole different dynamic to the situation. So what was reported by people on scene, by peace officers on scene, that they believed that they were taking sniper fire, yes. And that's where that is. Lady in the black.
Hi. Was he a suspect before you found him, or did you not identify him until after you found his remains?
Can you give me that first part again?
Was he a suspect prior to finding his body, or were you not sure who he was until after you found his remains?
Well, we had information that we had an idea who that person might be, but we always defer to the coroner's office to make sure that we have a positive identification on the individual. People borrow people's car, people use people's phones. So we always want to make sure that we have a positive identification before we make any type of release. So this lady.
Are you able to identify yet if Wes was the person who called 911, who made the initial 911 call?
Still under investigation. If that is the case, he did not use his real name. So, but it certainly will be part of the investigation. But we had an individual called, a male, and he did not use the suspect's name. So.
One more clarification, because I think I misunderstood. Did you say there was an interaction with first responders?
There was an interaction with the firefighters.
When they first arrived on the scene?
Correct.
What was that then?
It had something to do with his vehicle being parked where it was. Okay. So, yeah. The gentleman in the blue in the back.
Can you tell us what type of bullets then were used in the attack on the 3 firefighters?
Right. Well, we know that some rifled slugs were used, and a rifled slug is a pretty big projectile. Anybody know off the top of their head how many grains a rifled slug is?
What grains is 1 ounce?
Yeah. So generally going to be a 1 ounce piece of metal. But we also have some fragmentation of something. So it's still early on. You know, we have some smaller projectiles, and we don't know if that was a fragmentation of one of the rifled slugs or another weapon. Like I said, we are still processing that scene. The firefighters are putting water on it, so we're still processing that. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, can you tell us how sophisticated you think this ambush was? Or do you think this was an interaction that went badly? And one more thing, we were just right outside the scene, and we saw a firefighting vehicle come down with 3 completely flat tires. Were spikes used? Was that part of the ambush?
No, part of once the rounds started to exchange back and forth, and when deputies got on the scene, part of the theory was we don't want him to be able to circle back around and get into either one of the fire trucks or his own vehicle. So deputies disabled the trucks, and they pushed over the suspect vehicle off the side of the mountain.
I mean, that just gives you a sense of how chaotic the moment must have
been.
Oh,
yeah.
Disabling and crippling their own vehicles, so the suspect that's unseen and elusive wouldn't be able to circle back and use it. Right,
and we just don't, we just don't know in many cases, even if it's in an urban setting in a retail shopping center, how many suspects there are, because we're going to get different information, and we have to be able to evaluate that information to see what's credible, what's not credible. We always want to err on the side of caution, but initial reports were there were more than one suspect. Right here in the...
I just want to make sure I'm completely clear on this. So at the moment, as things stand as far as the weapons go, you're confident that he used the shotgun. It's possible that he used another weapon. You're not actually sure, and you don't know what that other weapon would be. Is that right?
Yeah, we're still processing the scene. So we know that there was a shotgun used. Absolutely. 100%. We know that for sure. So.
Sheriff, I'm sorry, this is really asked. Do you have like survivalist training or any type of like...
We cannot find any evidence that he has had any type of survivalist training. Now, he did grow up in from what we understand, he did grow up in a arborist family, and that they climb trees. And we did have reports that he was shooting at first responders via a tree. So he does have experience climbing trees.
I also just wanted to clarify, you had said in the previous press conference you were talking about misinformation. This is kind of going off the beaten path, but can you elaborate a bit on what that misinformation was? And I guess it felt like you had said families were finding out via Facebook, and I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so what happened, firefighting and EMS channels here in Kootenai County are not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not encrypted. Law enforcement channels are encrypted. So pretty quickly there was audio of the help call that came out and was broadcasted on social media. And that is just really, really hard on the families. Had they heard that, and I don't know if they did or didn't, but had they heard that, they would be able to identify their voice of their loved one and just make a chaotic situation more chaotic. So that's one of the...
I just want to be clear, none of the families were notified through social media. They were...
I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part of it. Yeah, I do not know. Lady in the black there.
But where does that interaction, that first interaction with firefighters fit there? If they have that interaction, how soon after that is there gunfire?
There was an interaction, so they arrived on scene. The initial call was about approximately 1:20. They arrived on scene. I'm going to guesstimate, I would say probably about 13:50 or about 10 minutes until 2 o'clock. Somebody... Go ahead.
One question I have is, you mentioned when you were doing welfare checks, what were those interactions like? Was the suspect just acting normal? Was there anything off about him at all?
during any of those interactions? Was there anything that stuck out for those?
Yeah, he cooperated on each one. He was told that, hey, the owner is asking you to leave. He left. There are certain criteria that we have to meet to be able to engage in somebody's well-being, and he did not meet those requirements at the time. So, yeah. Jeremy?
The shooter's body, is it in a condition where we can determine if there's any drugs or medication in the system?
That'll be part of the autopsy, yes.
Do you know how long he was here in Idaho, and also just, I know this is like a popular recreation area, so how many people, just members of the public, may have been up there during all of this hiking and just enjoying the day?
Well, it is a popular trail. As far as how many people actually, Lieutenant Klinkefus, do you have any idea of how many people might use it's like 25 miles of trail up there.
Yes, sir. On a Sunday afternoon, there could be a couple hundred citizens up there. Folks who use dirt bikes up there. They hike, mountain bike, e-bikes, very popular. I don't know exactly how many were there at that moment. There could have been several hundred on the mountain at that time.
Were they rescued? Like, were law enforcement jumping, helping rescue them, get them out?
There were people that were still coming down the mountain, and this is at approximately 30 hours, or about 3:30 yesterday. So people were still coming off of the mountain.
Sheriff, did the Instagram photo that the story, that you gave us, was his Instagram deleted? His social media has been wiped now? Is that by your doing? Or, what was...
Preliminary information is that we believe it has been wiped, but we don't know by who.
Okay.
Yeah. The lady in the rust color.
Can you tell me what sort of role federal agencies played in what played out yesterday, or would you have been able to do this without them, or?
Yeah, they were very, very helpful in providing assets, providing ground assets, and providing aerial assets. Like I said yesterday, we did have 2 helicopters that had a sniper in them. They were very, very helpful in real-time location of the suspect's phone. That was very helpful. And they were there not to take over anything. Each one of them came up to us and said, hey, what can we do to help? We're here as a resource. So we believe they were very, very helpful.
Could you describe those social media posts that are now no longer online? Of course, we've got this Instagram story, but we can't see those posts now.
Right, yeah. Like I said, it's either they've been removed or the account has been deleted. So we don't know. We know that one time it was there, but now we know it's gone. So I don't know what previous posts were there.
Sheriff, has the suspect's family been contacted, and if so, are they cooperating with the investigation at all?
The suspect's family knows of the situation, and they're still processing the situation also. Yeah.
Sheriff, is this the camo outfit that you guys found him in?
No, this is a previous post.
And then has the ATF been able to help you guys pinpoint, like, when he had that shotgun, and you guys been able to trace back where he bought that shotgun?
We haven't got there yet, yeah. Like I said, it's still pretty hot up there, but we'll get all that information. We just don't have that as of right now.
Are you more convinced
Is it
today?
to have snipers in the air when you've got people who are recreating up there coming off the mountain? How do you deal with that?
Well, it does provide a challenge in the rural area like that, but obviously we would not. We want them to identify the target first before they took any action. But it was an active shooter situation, and we have radio traffic where there was an exchange of gunfire between suspect and deputies. So we want to make sure that we have target identification before we use any type of lethal force. So.
Are you more convinced that he acted alone today than you were yesterday? And can you describe, we've heard that the fire was closing in to the scene, but can you describe?
Yeah, they said that the fire approached within 50 feet, and at that time it was a determination was made that we should probably remove the body and take what we can and then remove from the area. So that was the decision that was made at the time.
So you're going through a crime scene right now that has been burned over by fire.
Yeah, it's not the perfect situation, but sometimes you have to make the best choice, and that was the best choice at that time. All right, anybody?
So, clarifying question. Was he in the tree when he talked about firefighters who asked him to move the car? Could you sort of walk us through sort of make that
We don't believe he was in the tree at the time, but we believe that he engaged deputies from the tree.
And you mean gunfire?
Correct, yeah.
Last night you mentioned that there was a belief that he could be running from spot to spot. Has that been determined that he was moving actively across the mountain?
Still under investigation. You know, we want to make sure that we do a complete search of that area, that there's no guns left over, so still under investigation.
And then, is there anything you want the public to really understand about this, or do you want them to not do, or any notice?
Well, we're still processing the whole situation, but until the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department and the Kootenai County Fire Search and Rescue, until they put out a press release on where to give, I would encourage people to wait for that. There is one particular entity called they just changed their name, but it's called Kootenai County Red and Blue Line. I know them for a fact. I know that the board of directors do not take any money from them whatsoever, but I can anticipate we'll probably have people that are going to take advantage of this situation and try to scam people out of money for it. So I would encourage people to wait until there's an official press release from both of those entities on where to give.
Sheriff, really early in the wildfire investigation, but is there an indication that he lit them in multiple areas, multiple spots on the mountain, or does it seem to have snapped from one spot?
Yeah, right now we're still trying to contain it. It's not contained at this time, so until we can get it contained and get some investigators up there, then we don't know at this time.
Sheriff, are there 300 people that reports 300 law enforcement involved?
Yep.
So is this a war zone up there? How many shots were fired?
Well, we don't know exactly how many shots were fired at this time, but at the beginning of this event, we knew that it was tragic, and we knew that there were reports that there were multiple shooters. Whether that turns out to be or not, in an operation like this, you always want to plan and prepare for the largest event, and then it's easy to scale down. But if you don't prepare for the larger event and you need more resources, it's not a good situation. So the train of thought is always prepare for a larger event. But in this particular case, an active shooter in a rural area, that just provides a lot of different challenges. And I know that Captain Heil, part of the strategy was that we're going to protect that west side of that mountain because that's where the homes are, and we're going to have probably triple as many personnel on that side. And if he wants to go east, or if he wants to go in the fire, let him. But there's a lot of different dynamics that you have to consider in a rural containment and a rural active shooter. Jeremy, do you have any questions, or do you have anything you'd like to add on how the challenges of what happened?
No, unless there's any specific question.
Okay.
Sheriff, we often hear about cell phone data being used after crimes to determine the locations of people. Were you guys actively, for lack of a better word, pinging him as the crime was unfolding?
Yes.
I hate to go backwards a bit, but I did see deputies hugging each other and patting each other on the back when I was out there. I'm just kind of wondering what the mindset of your office is right now, and I guess how those first responders are doing after all this.
They're in shock. Yeah, absolutely. It's they're in shock and they're still processing it. They're in shock.
Is there anything in particular you guys are doing for them right now?
Well, we are right now. We are going to support them in anything that they need. Obviously, getting the families together and to determine how they want to memorialize their loved one, and we will be there to support that.
Can I follow up to my thinking question, sir?
Sure.
Do you have emergency agreements with cell providers for that kind of capability?
Yes. Yeah.
And what do you do to enact that? You just make a call and say, we got to do this, and off we go?
There are certain conditions and requirements that need to be met, but this was certainly one of those cases. Yeah.
How effective were the drone units during this whole process?
The drone units were very effective. Each agency that helped us out had their own drone with different capabilities, and in the end we were able to locate and verify where the body was when with the drones from the different agencies that were here.
Your name, sir?
Jeremy Heil, Captain.
Spell the last name, please.
H-Y-L-E.
All right. We'll take 2 more questions.
Sheriff, I may have missed it earlier, but what exactly was his connection to Coeur d'Alene?
We just don't know. We don't know. We know that he was a transient here. We knew that he lived here for the better part of 2024. But as far as when he got here, why he was here, why he chose this place, I don't know. He has relatives in the Priest River area, but I don't know why he chose that. We don't find any nexus to anything else. Maybe we'll find more once we do an inventory of the vehicle, but as of right now, we don't know. And then one more question.
Are you able to confirm whether or not the firefighters who were shot were the ones who spoke with him, or are you able to?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out and sharing this story with the public. So thank you.
We are now wrapping up a half-hour press conference being held in Kootenai County regarding the shooting and murder of 2 firefighters yesterday and a 3rd firefighter who is in the hospital after a fire was reported on Canfield Mountain and then crews were shot at. We're learning a lot from the sheriff today regarding this case as more details become available. Learning a little more about the shooter, Wes Rowley, who is found dead at the scene. Just finding out from law enforcement now, they believe that Rowley killed himself. Finding out from the sheriff as well that they had to remove the body from the scene quickly because the fire was spreading and overrunning the crime scene. So they were able to remove him because, of course, many more questions regarding this case, and they didn't want to lose the body, nor did they want to lose some of the evidence around there. We also learned that law enforcement had interactions with Rowley in the past, 5 interactions to be exact, according to the sheriff. Minor things, some trespassing, a couple of welfare checks. They believe he may have been living out of his car in the Coeur d'Alene area, but saying they're not sure what brought him to Coeur d'Alene or what his connection really was. They did say that they believe at one time he wanted to be a firefighter, though they did not elaborate much on that. They did say they have not found at this point any sort of manifesto that would maybe explain the why behind this for Rowley. They said they will continue, of course, that search. He did have a car at the scene, and this was interesting information. Apparently, when crews got to the scene, in order that to make it so that Rowley couldn't drive away from the scene, they took that car and put it over the side of the mountain to disable it. And in fact, sounds like they may have even disabled some of the tires on some of the fire vehicles so that he cannot circle around and use those to get out of the area. We were learning a little bit about that Rowley had a flint starter found on him or near him, and they believe that's what was used to start the initial fire that fire crews were responding to. We also heard from the sheriff that there was some sort of interaction between Rowley and firefighters before the shootings happened, and may have had something to do with his vehicle being there. We're not completely clear on that right now, but that was coming from the sheriff. He talked a little bit about the difficult dynamic being in a mountainous area and what sort of challenges that presented. And so, again, learning some more information on this story. And we will certainly continue to cover this story as so many more questions need to be asked and answered, and law enforcement saying they are certainly continue to process the evidence, and will continue to update the public. We are posting online, as well as we'll be updating you on KREM 2 News starting at 4 o'clock, and always on KREM 2 Plus. Thanks for being with us for this continuing coverage on the firefighters killed on Canfield Mountain. And again, as the community continues to mourn, there is one firefighter still in the hospital, and as soon as we have an update on his condition, we'll bring that to you.